paper magic will survive like the heat death of the universe and will...
Oh, it's a smuggler's copter. Would you like to crew this? And then it crashes because they don't understand arithmetic.
All your cards belong to me.
2 minutes into macing him in the eyeballs, I switched to pepper spray. He's like, it's all right, refreshing. And went back to the mace.
Magic is dying, I'm done. Selling everything.
I might be a hoarder. And yes,
I don't have the crayons or glue to explain this to you right now.
What, are you gonna die twice?
Oil will be worthless before magic cards will.
well, okay, Dr. Man.
That's Mr. Dr. Professor Jason.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Brainstorm Brewery. We are back to the crew that's probably put in played the most games together over the last year. I would say it's me, DJ, and Cass.
Played
Welcome
the most
into the
games
show.
together?
Yeah, if you think about it, like as a sports team, you always measure like how many games your stars play together. Like, does Anthony Davis and LeBron James play a bunch of games together? Because your win rate, success rate will be higher when in the games where your stars all play at the same time.
It's called Synergy, honey. Look it up.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll just let you work out, from there how the chips may fall, but I'm just saying.
I am the LeBron James of this podcast.
Corbin, I want to know where the chips fell, but into your keyboard keys.
Everywhere.
Were they
Yeah.
sour cream and onion, or were they Funyuns? You seem like a Funyun guy.
I am not. I'm like a normal barbecue chip kind of guy. My son knows a big flaming hot Cheetos kind of. That shit gets everywhere.
Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
Yeah, I've got
are
this Dell
timeless.
keyboard here. I've had it for 25 years.
Turn it upside down, coward.
I have a little
It's
custom
fine, it's
keyboard
mostly-
with pastel colors, and my arrow keys are little macarons. It's very cute.
That's adorable.
Thank you. DJ, what's
Yeah,
your
well,
keyboard?
welcome in to the show, everybody. It's been a busy start to 2023. There was an SCG Con over the weekend in Cincinnati. No coverage of it, so you didn't get to see the coolest deck, the coolest finals matchup and winner of the modern 10K. But there's an event nonetheless, and there was whisper, maybe some drama.
If we had a star on this podcast, they would have told you that you got the date wrong.
Also, was there Merfolk in the finals? Is that why you said that, Corbin?
No, there was Merfolk
Good.
in the champion circle. Winner.
It wasn't the
Fish
finals
won.
then.
Fish won. LCI, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, has revitalized the archetype. Tashana Tidebinder is the truth, but also Deep Root Pilgrimage, the 2-drop enchantment. Merfolk against Mill in the finals, by the way. Very good match.
That's how you know that 20K was soft.
We take them. We take those. It's okay.
I described it on Twitter as a tumbleweed SCG or SCG event, and I
didn't
do that.
I didn't see the
I wonder-
numbers. It's a rough weekend to host an event, I think.
I wonder how many that mill player. I wonder how many amulet opponents they just like beat on turn 2 by like turn
that
3 by
why-
just like quad archive trapping them.
Why Amulet plays 64 cards now, right?
Clearly,
Is
there
that it?
are
Is that
levels
it?
on levels.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it was a busy weekend, or a busy week for us as well. My son and I beat Raft. That was a big deal. Okay, that was pretty awesome. DJ, I don't really know what DJ did anyway, but Cass was busy.
I was there. I was in the trenches. I was
Oh,
hustling.
you were in
and
Cincy.
I was in Cincinnati, the city where last time I was there, my flight got canceled and I had to drive home 10 hours.
I like that city.
Real quick, on Cincinnati, the best experience of my life at an Airbnb was there. All right, story time.
Go on.
My buddy Hagwar was the one who booked the room.
Hagwar?
His name's Jacob Hagen, but he's Hagwar. He's the Raging Cajun Bacon. Don't worry about it. He booked
I'm
the
a little
Airbnb.
worried that you're referencing a D&D character right now.
Jacob Hagen is a D&D character in essence. He books the place and he's known for like finding hidden gems. And so we get there and the owners of the Airbnb are there to greet us, which normally not about it.
Yeah, agreed. Want to be left
They were the
alone.
nicest older couple. They owned the store underneath the Airbnb, which was like an antique fashion store. And they said, enjoy your stay. There's fresh groceries in the fridge. We got you all the stuff for like an omelet. All the kitchen stuff's clean. Also, on Sunday morning, if you want, you can join us for our sippin' show. And it's like a 1920s fashion show with like mimosas and brunch. And the bar across the street had corned beef hash by the pound.
All right.
And so I missed day 2 of the Open, the team did, and I On Sunday, instead, just drank mimosas, ate corned beef hash, and watched, like, emaciated women in their 60s wear, like, fashion 30 years older than them. It was awesome. It was one of the best days of my life. So shout out to Cincinnati for that and nothing else.
Okay. Sure. I think my first ever Magic Grand Prix I worked officially was I think.
The first one I ever worked is in Hartford, and that's coming up next month for the first time since 2016 or whatever.
Hartford's a good location, all things considered.
What are the things considered that it's in that can't be fun to fly into, right?
You drive
The things that are considered are whether it is drivable in one day according to the Department of Transportation laws for Star City games. I'm not wrong.
It's not that expensive to go there. The area is like reasonably nice. I got a lot of friends in Connecticut, so it's fine. It's good for me.
Was it Providence that was the worst experience?
I mean, Rhode Island is not a real place on Earth. That's
It might have
someone's
been Providence where I had just the worst.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is old GP stories here. Let's talk about what actually happened at the SCG outside of Merfolk Winning, outside of all of this. There was a bevy of stories that came out, several stories with the common thread being counterfeits and poor card quality, etc. One player was disqualified going into the top 8 of an event for having marked cards / counterfeits in their deck that the judges determined was worthy of a disqualification. Another person was told to get their cards replaced because they were, they determined them to accidentally be fake. And then they went to vendors who told them it was real. Another person...
Well, accidentally being fake is... You mean wrong? Like accidentally and wrong are two different things.
Right. They were wrong about their. They didn't know their cards were fake. They were uninformed.
Yes. You also had another issue where someone was playing a very fancy version of a deck with all serialized cards, and the judges determined that their deck was marked as well because the serialized cards from Wizards. These are not counterfeits. These are serialized Magic cards from Wizards. A Tron deck with all the fancy stuff was determined to be marked. The cards were not allowed. And these
deck was foil.
It was a foiled deck. And look, as someone with a foiled deck, a foil Merfolk deck, one that's now going to be in need of new foils in addition to the ones it's needed over the last few years, this matters to me. The rule to me has always been, and this is, I believe, what they said was their understanding as well, you either want a non-foiled deck or an all-foiled deck, because the foils can be cut to a little differently, but if your whole deck is foil and you can't cut to any one card consistently, then it doesn't really matter because your deck there's no advantage gain. That does not appear to be what happened in this case, because the judges were unable to cut to the cards in question after the sleeves were replaced, but they were still forced to replace them. So I think it's safe to say, a mess all around.
So as somebody who, again, is directly involved with this, I'm you can't see my hand right now, but I'm playing the smallest violin for you and your stupid fish. As somebody who is directly involved with this, from the standpoint of a vendor and being asked, like, hey, is this card real? That is a very, very important and awkward question that has more layers to it than the average person thinks. So if you're playing at a competitive Magic event, and a judge randomly comes over and checks your deck, which is a good thing. It is good for judges to randomly verify that you are playing a legal Magic the Gathering deck in the tournament. That is good. Make sure you're not playing banned cards or cards that are not legal, or again, like,
importantly, it enforces it for everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
And it is very bad if that judge comes over, takes the player's deck away from the table, brings it to me, who I might be dealing with a customer, and says, hey, I am going to hold up several hundred people's event, potentially, and all of their time for you to suddenly have all of the onus and all of the risk. Tell me if this card is real. That is not my job, to help that judge in that situation. Which sounds insane to some people. Like,
it's insane that if you go any deeper, the players who pay money to enter that tournament are entering into a contractual agreement with the tournament organizer, and I guarantee you nowhere in the rules of the Magic tournament does it say anything about the determination is going to be made by this vendor we walked over to the fight with. That's actually insane for money and liabilities.
There's also the fact of, like, if I'm a player and the judge walks away with my deck and comes back and says, these cards are fake.
Yep.
And I'm not someone who's super entrenched or knowledgeable about this process, I might think the judge swapped them for fake cards, my real ones. Like, this is something that's come up before. That puts a lot of pressure on the vendor because there's already an adversarial relationship between players and vendors. And I know in the past, one of the reasons why a lot of vendors don't do it is because that's come up and the player's been like, well, the vendor took the card from me and put a fake one in. Something that's never actually happened, I'm sure.
Of course, that's how you know the player's guilty, but still.
Right.
But like legally, if I'm the TO, it's a matter of legal liability. And I hate everything you said there from the TO standpoint.
And
like,
it is
terrible
the TO's responsibility at that point, which adds a layer of, like, if you want to cover that liability and cover that risk and have somebody on your TO staff who is trained in authentication and who basically has a history as a Magic vendor, that is what you need to do. Judges are nowhere in the Magic rules stuff is like, oh, look.
Well, look, SCG in particular already employs people, right? Like,
but
there are a couple specific judges who have been in the trenches long enough at these events that you would trust, but that is not like a product of the system. That is a product of the person.
Yeah, I'm saying SCG as a company has access to it.
The real solution is to have the tournament organizer have a deal with one of the vendors who has upfront accepted that this is something they're going to do, and also is protected from risk. That's like that's the structural solution, right?
Yeah, I mean, or SCG just literally brings their own buyer, and it's in-house.
That's really tough for just like a random employee who's being paid to be there to have to make that call. Like, I think if I'm a player, I would not be happy if that was the person making the determination. A random SCG buyer knows so much less than someone who, like, this is not to denigrate SCG's buyers, it's just like a random person who works for a company is not like an owner of one of the big vendor booths, right? I don't want to name names or anything, but there are 20 people in the room I'd maybe trust to authenticate cards, like, almost completely.
Here's the thing, the judge who's authenticating the card doesn't know that. They're just looking for... I literally saw one of the judges' advice being, go find a buyer at a vendor booth and ask them.
That's why it needs to be policy, written structure, so that there's no questions, because when you are the person who is like laying down the law at these events, there has to actually be law to cite.
Right. And it's the same, and all of this hits this because we talk about counterfeits, and, I think our stance on counterfeits is pretty well known, and the whole thing is just kind of disastrous overall. And look, there was a cool event, and there was no coverage of it. So you know what people are talking about instead? All the things.
Yeah. Don't kid yourself. People don't talk about coverage when there's coverage.
I think this is really a symptom of a larger disease. One of the things the judge program used to be really good about, and it was never perfect about it, but it was much better about it, was professional development. Mm-hmm. When there was a lot more structure, there was a lot more direct mentorship, and that's still there a little bit.
Yeah, there's
more events, but like now, new policy gets made at such a slow rate. A lot of it's coming from WotC proper. Mm-hmm. I think that really like the Judge Academy and Judge Foundry sort of breaking apart WotC and the judges as an entity has led to worse professional development. Also, the incentives for judges are just not there to get good at their job. It's a volunteer program where the pay is pretty bad.
Essentially, yeah.
It's like, what's your incentive to get better at the job? What's the incentive to make this a better system for people?
I mean, there's the 20 people at the top who make a tidy sum of money going in at judging events, but those people also keep doing it.
Those people don't have incentives to grow the next fleet.
Right.
Oh, sure, yeah.
They kind of do, but like they're very small incentives.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, like that, even then, like, you're putting a lot of hours into something so you can, start making good sidekick, right? But it's a lot, and you're right. The development aspect isn't there, especially when before you'd have Grand Prix every week with one, maybe up to 3 tournament organizers across the country. A judge could come get in the program, get their foot in the door, do all right, get in. But now all of a sudden they've done a GP once a month for the last 6 months, and they've gotten to iterate and improve and work with people. And a lot of that infrastructure, like all the other infrastructure in Magic, that's just crumbled.
So if you're a player coming into one of these events, let's ground it a little bit for the average person going to an SCG Con. If you're a player coming into this event and you have concerns that one of your decks might not be like up to snuff, or you might have like bought your deck on TCG Player, it came in, you're like, this Blood Crypt looks a little weird. If you bring that card to me, I will tell you whether or not I would buy it. That is generally my line. Is I will not authenticate a card, but if you bring me, hey, this Underground Sea I bought feels a little weird, I got it on eBay, or like my LGS told me to bring this and check to see if it's real, giving you a number on that card is our wink, like, hey, this is a real card.
Right.
That
makes sense.
and I'm happy to do that for a player directly.
Right. There's no
I am not
guarantee
happy
with
to do that if a judge comes over and expects me to provide a service to the tournament that is not a player. Because I am there to provide a service to the player, not to the tournament.
Right. And there's
As
no
we
guarantee
discussed
in
with
that.
Bitter Ordeal and Atlanta and all the Pioneer cards.
Something else you can do at tournaments before the tournament starts is you can go to the head judge and ask them, do I have any marked cards in my deck? Like, does this deck look okay? Mm-hmm. Generally, you only do that for, like, altars, or if you have, like, one weird foil and you have a specific concern. And the thing about that is, it also isn't a guarantee, but it lets you know that if you need to correct something, you have a person get their eyes on it.
Yeah, and then it gives you cover during the tournament for anything, right? If a judge who's doing because the head judge is always going to be the final ruling, but even getting the head judge in a tournament is not always possible, because you could get the floor judge or the deck tech judge, and then you can appeal. There's an appeals judge, and that appeals judge is not always the head judge. So being able to say, this head judge with this name said this, then they'll go get that person. You'll be covered in a way that you otherwise.
Right.
But again, all of this is, I don't want to say marginal, because people do end up with face unknowing. But it is really difficult, of course, for us, because every person who's ever said they've had a fake unknowingly in their deck, we have to take them at their word for them. Versus
Kind of.
Almost all the time. So I have a pretty solid average of, like, I see roughly 1 to 2 fake cards per GP or per event or what have you at these weekend long events. I see an average of 1 to 2 every event. And I would say 95% of the time that person does not know. They're very surprised. They're very apologetic. It does make the rest of the transaction a little more awkward, just because you suddenly have to just turn on that vision and think, okay, is there anything else this person didn't know about? But most of the time, it is a very, very feel-bad story where you are just, like, telling them their pet just died.
There's also the standard operating procedure, from what I understand in the judge community, is when you think someone has fake cards, you get to pull them aside and ask them a couple of questions. Mm-hmm. And judges use social engineering to try and get you to talk about the cards, and, like, oftentimes people just expose themselves. I know I played the SCG Open that I won in 2019, the Baltimore one. Our round 2 opponents were disqualified for having fake cards in their deck knowingly. It's hard, because, like, to disqualify someone for saying they have fake cards in their deck knowingly, they either have to admit it or you have to trick them into admitting it. Not trick them, like, as in, get them to say something that's not true, but, like, you have to ask them a series of questions in which they have the opportunity to reveal information they didn't intend to reveal.
Or the fakes, or they have a lot of fakes and they're just bad, and it's just like, come on.
Right.
That is the come on, man, is a test that I've seen employed at high levels of Magic judging. Like, come on, man, what do you do? Like,
also, a shout out to I can never talk about counterfeits without telling the story, but the Shutter MTG Ash story, she posts about, like, a local legacy event, just like a local random legacy event. Yeah, and asks to see their opponent's Underground Sea, to which they said no. So Ash calls a judge. It is the Magic Online only artwork for Underground Sea at a paper legacy event. So that was
well, they just had their proxy deck and sat down and didn't realize it.
Yeah, that's just a.
And you know what? Good for them, because that had to have been accidental, right? Or someone trying to prove a point.
I
right?
had a moment in my Tuesday night standard weekly, very low stakes event, obviously, where someone I know who's a regular there just, like, had a card. It's like a sanctioned event, had a magic card on the back of it that had Shieldred the Apocalypse written on it. She kind of gave me a look and realized I was looking at it. And she was like, no, I have it. It's just in this guy right here's back. He just didn't have time to get it out from before we started. And he just, like, got it out for her. And that was fine.
Yeah.
But it was like... That's the line, right? It's like, if you intend to do the right thing, it's fine.
We want to give a shout out to our sponsor, mtgstocks.com, the best resource for Magic Gathering financial information on the internet, outside, of course, of this podcast. But you check out the premium site, MTG Stocks. It gives you tools to set all the custom alerts and tracking options that you want. It is what we use for all of our picks of the week and the cards we're about to talk about in this next segment, Breaking Bulk.
Breaking bulk time. Breaking bulk time. Break.
Oh, yeah, Breaking Bulk. There's so much good stuff.
It's a pick. Breaking bulk. The end.
Time for a Sego?
A Sego.
Lego My Sego? Is this something?
Good effort.
I liked it.
I have two. One that you're going to guess really quickly, and then I'll back up Ace in the Sleeve. This is a Magic Origins green
Ace
uncommon.
in the sleeve?
Is this Dwennan's Elite?
No.
This Ace in the sleeve?
They both work. Corbin, calm down. Magic Origins green uncommon?
Coming from the guy who said this was 2023.
I think it's up the sleeve. You're probably right. I understand.
I've heard it both ways.
It's Ace in my
It's
hole.
in the hole up the sleeve, but go on.
I don't know any cards in Origins except for Jace Vryn's Prodigy and Dwennan's Elite.
It's a green... What is it? A green uncommon? What did you
Green
say?
uncommon from Magic Origins that is worth a very surprising amount of money. The card that...
Is
the
it
fact that this
Silver
card is
Messenger?
Colossal Might.
No, and no. The fact that this card is a pick is not the surprising thing. It is just how much... It's like more expensive than most cards in Magic.
Whenever a
Origins.
creature with power 3 enters it's an enchantment, right?
Yes.
It's like they draw a card enchantment when it
Draw a
comes
card
Elemental
whenever a
Bond
creature
is
is
the
power
card you were
3.
talking about,
Yeah.
Corbin.
Yeah, I got
It's got like Nissa leaning down to like scoop some shit, maybe.
I don't... Maybe? Yeah, that's Nissa. She's bonding with an elemental.
Oh, well, there you go. I assume she
Sure.
was just like scooping some dirt.
What do you think the price of this card is, if Corbin hasn't already cheated?
I think it's like $3.50 or something, right? $4.
It's like $8, actually.
What?
Yeah.
Whoomst?
I would have said 3 to 5. Because
the
only
Commander-
because I knew it had spiked.
The
Otherwise,
Commander
it was
only
at-
versions are 9 or 10-ish because SEO purposes, but like, yeah, this is just a very, very, very valuable common that has gone a few years without being reprinted. It was last reprinted in the starter Commander deck, doesn't count. Prior to that, it was Commander 2019, which was printed in the year 2018, which means this card has been 5 years without a reprint. No list, no mystery booster, no Strixhaven, no
I've got these in
Violence of
bulk.
Eldritch. Nothing. This is just an $8 uncommon from a set that all of us think was yesterday.
Origins was the last core set I really enjoyed.
It's
this
one
is
of my favorite sets of all time, honestly.
I just looked it up. This is the third most expensive card in Magic Origins
That's so funny.
on MTG
That's-
stocks.
This
That's
card
so
was
funny.
actual bulk when it came out, and it was actual bulk up to 2018. That's pretty nutty.
So my backup pick that I will be very surprised if you just get off the hand now. Pygmy. I'm just doing this to make Corbin mad now. Visions Rare.
Pygmy
Multicolor.
Hippo.
Yeah, I actually said that first word of the card. But Pygmy Hippo is a Visions Rare. It's like $3, and its
Yeah.
effect actually doesn't work. Like, the card
It's
doesn't do
reserveless,
anything.
right?
I believe it's reserveless because it is a rare and it's for Visions. But, like, the card effect does not work. It does not work in the context of what Magic cards do nowadays. This might be a pre-modern card, assuming they're playing with pre-modern rules where you have mana burn involved. But this card, if it gets through and deals combat damage to your opponent, they have to tap all their lands, and then you get mana. So you kind of it's like a mana drain creature.
Well, it's still fine if you have a bunch of instant speed effects, and also you want to cast spells post-combat.
But like they can tap their lands in response, and then you don't get any mana.
Right, but then their lands are all tapped, so it's like a Xantid Swarm at that point.
A 3-mana 2/2 or 2-mana 2/2 Grizzly Bear. Yeah, it is not
Called
a good
hate
card,
bear.
but
We
any
call them
port in
hate
the storm.
bears, DJ. They're called hate bears in the parlance.
Any port in a storm, bud. Pygmy Hippo is my friend. He is
and
real.
You should pick him out of bulk because he is worth. I believe the conversion rate is like 2.5 elemental bonds right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a lot. All right, I've got a card here you all are going to either instantly get or never get. It is a red uncommon from Dominaria United.
Red on Phoenix chick?
Yes.
Oh, you.
I know that set way too well.
Good job, Cass. Yeah, Phoenix Chick, it's 50 cents. It's a $3 foil, but yeah, it is on the buy list. I checked 15 cents on the buy list.
I think it's also unplayable in Standard. Don't play that card in your mono red deck.
There you go. I can't
That's
say
my hot
I don't
take.
know anything about you'd have to pay me some amount of something for me to sleeve up a mono red deck in Standard. So I can't say that I have any practice with that deck, but I'm glad that it exists so that the format is not just domain dot format.
It's the fun police, and like you need a fun
needs
police
to be.
sometimes because those domain players are having too much damn fun.
Domain is the deck that would ruin Standard if there were not aggressive options to keep.
Agreed.
So I'm glad that there are. And you're right about the Planeswalkers, Cass, because Planeswalkers might be the difference. If the domain decks had more Planeswalkers they could slam on turn 3 or 4 that helped them stabilize into the later turns, that would be a huge deal.
Like I said, my domain lists are playing some number of Jace, Perfected Minds, and the Wandering Emperors. Like
Yeah, Jace was crushing me. That's why I stopped playing Standard. I built that
card's a
domain
3-mana
deck.
Planeswalker
I
that
built that domain
upticks
deck,
to
and
relieve pressure.
I did. They'd build me, and I'd lose. It was horrible. But yeah, check out Phoenix Chick.
I have a pick of the week. I have two. Sorry, Breaking Bulks.
Mm-hmm.
One of them I believe that you'll get quickly. One of them you'll probably also get quickly, but like you'll have to think on it a little more. The first one is a black uncommon from Dominaria United.
Shieldred's Edict?
That is Phyrexia All will be one.
Some other variant of Shieldred's Edict that's slightly worse.
No edicts here.
Hold up. Dominaria United Black?
Uh-huh.
Cut down? Is that set?
It's cut down.
Okay.
So
I did almost
there-
overthink it.
There are like 3 removal spells in Standard that cost 1 mana, and there are varying levels of good and bad. There's Cut Down in black, there's Strangle in red, and there's Lay Down Arms in white. Of those 3, I think they all have a place in some deck. Cut Down, it goes into the most decks, and it goes into Esper midrange, which is like one of the top decks. It also goes in red-black midrange, and Golgari midrange, and blank midrange with black cards.
Good card.
1 mana removal is really good in Standard, even if it's situational.
You're selling me on Standard, Cass. I'm going to go make
It's
it.
so good. It's so good. My other pick is an Innistrad Midnight Hunt colorless rare.
Is it Celestis?
Yeah. Card is miserable to play with because the day and night mechanic sucks. It usually goes in decks where it's the only day and night card, but it is a mana rock that gains you life and produces mana of any color and comes into play untapped for 3 mana. You can play that and then play a cut down. My 2 picks are a combo.
That's a
Pristine
good.
Talisman had a glow up over the years.
I mean, we just talked about decks finding ways to interact with aggro. That's a good line.
Right.
All right, on to the next topic here. Let's dive into Standard a little bit more. By the way, Karlov Manor is coming up. You thought it was Markov Manor? It's not. It's Karlov Manor. It's not set on Innistrad. It's set on Ravnica because we can't go more than 2.5 years without returning to Ravnica. That's what the man in the tower said. So that's what Wizards does. Anyways, Karlov Manor is coming out.
We have the Blogatog post for Karlov Manor.
For those who don't know, Mark Rosewater's Blogatog is like Breaking Bulk, but just not as cool and not as hip. He came up with this probably after us. I don't know. I'm not going to fact check him. But he gives you a little attribute of a card that is in an upcoming set. We do ours from past sets. And then we, as Magic Wizard financiers, try to figure out, like what that card could be or potential future combos with other cards. My favorite example of this that still has not worked out yet is, I think it was Ikoria or a Corset or something. He said there was a card that provided +20/+20 on a single aura. It's Colossification. It's actually a pretty good Breaking Bulk itself. But when he said, oh, there's a +20/+20 aura, I doubled down on my spec of Academy Researchers and Aura Swap. What's it called? Arcanum Wings with Aura Swap. Both of those cards, very, very big fans of, personally, as long-term holds, just because I believe they will eventually continue to print some weird Eldrazi conscription thing that kills you. And I think there will be hypo based on that. So we see cards that have these little teasers. Let's start off the first one, which is kind of dull. White gets a card that lets you play a subset of card off the top of your deck.
So they get like an Oracle of Moldiah, Vizier of the Menagerie type deal?
Yeah, it's that, but for enchantments. Cool.
Sure. Maybe for like for for detectives or soldiers or something.
Yeah, well, sure. A new enchantment subtype, case. I'm on the case. I hate it.
Okay, I love it.
I think it's great. I'm digging this.
I love it.
A card with 4 different hybrid symbols at its mana cost.
So Niv Mizzet.
Probably. But like in terms of things this sparks curiosity for, I would say like devotion things maybe, or any sort of chroma or
Nephilim.
Oh, all the Nephilims merge into one big Nephilim. That'd be so cool, actually.
Nephilims were from Ravnica, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and they basically
Don't know anything about the story.
retconned them out of existence, maybe.
But maybe
they're
they
bringing
can
them back.
retcon them back in.
Yeah.
That'd be a really cool reveal and a little murder mystery. Oh, the Nephilims were the ones hiring the assassins the whole time. If I'm right about that, clip that and post it everywhere.
So do you actually know the storyline here, Cass? Is there like a murder mystery I can follow? Is it like a story?
I don't believe there's one
kind of
yet.
interesting.
On the 16th, I believe there's going to be a stream where they're going to
Okay.
talk about the storyline, give us a few more spoilers, and probably key us in on the initial parts of the story.
Yeah.
On launch day, I'm going to be watching Clue, the movie. Like, I'll be doing it. No one can stop me. I love that movie.
Nice.
So we have a popular mechanic returns tweaked with a new name.
Kicker.
Love that. I love that. What do you think it is?
It's going to be Bascade, and it's going to let you exile cards until you find a card with a lower mana cost, and then put it into play, and then they're going to ban a modern deck 3 weeks later or whatever.
Okay,
I
cool.
think
Cass,
it's gonna
what do you
be
think?
Improvise. It's going to be improvise.
Because of the clues and the case?
Yeah.
The clues, yeah.
Yeah. That's my shot call.
Isn't that
It's
just
just-
like a... I think you could just like put that mechanic in, though. How do you tweak that?
It wouldn't be like improvise. It would be like extrapolate or something. Like use your clues to find the solution or something. I want to say I'm making like a parlay. If the Nephilims were behind the murders and it was the mechanic's called extrapolate or like uses your clues to improvise, I don't know. I win the parlay bet.
I want most of the cards that make clues to be blue, just so there can be a Blues Clues deck.
Well, they're gonna be heavy in blue white, I think, because that's what like the Azorius. It's gonna be blue white and red because the Boros and the Azorius are the ones who are looking into it. Or
What
the Boros aren't
if
looking into it.
It was investigated.
What's
Make a clue.
A popular mechanic returns tweaked with a new name.
Well, I think Investigate is already on a card.
Investigate, I think, is in the set.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's a
great.
Craven Inspector reskin.
Well, there you go. It makes sense.
I just remembered something about the story. Apparently, like maybe Aurelia was murdered or something, and the Boros are like, "You have 24 hours to solve this crime, or we'll start a war." I think that's the current story. Is like the Guild Pack has to solve the crime in 24 hours.
Sounds fun. Event sets like the event is but like sets centered around one. I don't want to say small, but like one sort of event, as opposed to always just being a
Apocalypse
huge
Now.
look in at a world where you have to see everything all the time, and it's apocalyptic, and they have to enter 5 new cultures and things,
Right.
and blah blah blah.
In
So
a
it's
world
cool to pop
with
in 'em.
10 guilds,
This is what you-
Azorius detectives have 48 hours to solve a case. After that, the rate goes up astronomically.
And you don't have to introduce people to the guilds because you've already established that.
And
You
then-
can pop in for
and
this
then
story.
it's just like a civic fishman in the interrogation room with his hands cuffed and his fins cuffed or whatever, and then he's like, "Hey, can I have a lawyer?" And the Boros guy's like, "God."
When she walked in, I knew she was nothing but trouble. She had legs so long, 8 of them even. A Golgari spider.
I'm just like imagining like a hard-boiled noir detective with like a spider lady walks into his office from the Golgari, and he's just like, "This is normal."
I never saw True Detective, but it's got to be like that.
He's a ghost, but he's still smoking a cigarette.
Can we get Matthew McConaughey on a magic card saying like,
Yes.
"Used to be nothing but jungle out there, like a
It's
faded
just a
memory
it's
of
a-
a town."
It's a check away. Write that check and it happens.
I would buy a True Detective Secret Lair. You got me there.
We have Neil Patrick Harris on a Doctor Who card, so the
Do we?
all the yes,
Yes.
yes we do.
Because Neil
we
Patrick
have-
Harris played the Toy Maker, and the Toy Maker's on a card.
That's fantastic.
I know. It's really cool.
So this one is actually, I think, guessable if we put our brains together. This next one. A keyword mechanic not printed in a Premier set since 2008 returns on a single card.
What was in 2008? It was Future Sight, right?
It was Alara.
Alara. Right?
It was Alara and probably one other random set.
So the Alara
mechanics quite Zendikar yet, so...
I think it was Lorwyn.
Morning Tide?
I think it was Lorwyn, y'all.
Could it be Fortify?
Oh, okay.
Future Sight was 06.
Listen, 2008, February was Morning Tide.
Yep.
Okay? May was Shadowmoor. July was Eventide. October was Shards. And that is it for the year.
We've had Conspire cards since, right? Oh, Conspire, it's perfect.
Yep.
Yep.
Have we had a Conspire card in a Master set since?
I don't know if that counts as a Premier set.
Oh, right, those are Premier, right.
Yeah, I think specifying Premier might be a thing. Conspire would make sense to me.
Sorted by release date.
I think you nailed it with Conspire.
We had a Conspire card in Lord of the Rings and in Doctor Who, but since then it's been all reprints.
Hell yeah. Nailed it. Go us.
I love Gleeful Sabotage.
A creature that allows you an alternate non-mana cost for all your spells. I think that's probably some demon that's just like you may pay life or exile cards or.
Did we touch on the green sorcery you can have any number of in the deck? Do we think that's money?
Not yet.
That is money. I did accidentally skip over that.
Well, that's money.
But a green sorcery you can have any number of in your deck. Every version of these, I think, asterisk, is worth money. Relentless Rats, Persistent Petitioners, Dragon's Approach, Shadowborn Apostle, and Rat Colony.
Yeah. But it might also be a card that represents money, like bribes.
Seven dwarves.
Oh, yeah. It's just like...
$20 bribe. I'm going $20 mode.
7 dwarves, DJ.
That doesn't say you can have any number of it.
Right.
That's different. But for a while, it was worth money as a result.
Yeah, I think, coin, just coin is just coin a card. It's worse treasure, but I don't know.
There was gold.
I like where you're going with this.
There was gold.
One of the, rather than going through all the creature types, there's one I want to really make sure I touch on. Because it's a artifact creature clue fish. If it isn't a red herring, I'm going to lose my f***ing mind. So I recently was going back through New Capenna, and I might be wrong about this, but I believe every non-creature, non-guild card, like every instant sorcery, enchantment, or whatever that is not directly affiliated with a specific guild is like a reference or a pun. It's like, sleep with the fishes, or cut your losses,
witness protection.
I hope we get something like of that level with this set, because there was a lot of artistry in that in Capenna.
True.
I just hate the card pop quiz.
I loved Strixhaven. I loved
Strixhaven.
I like all of those.
School joke.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Strixhaven does nothing for me.
Or DJ, it's a Keanu Reeves reference. The speed.
Corbin, I think if you make a speed reference without Jason, we have to kick you off the cast forever.
Pop quiz, hot shot. What movie is that card a reference to? It's Speed.
You can't
It's Speed, starring Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. It's Sandra Bullock, right?
Yeah.
I found out that she was also the female lead in Demolition Man when I watched it for the first time a couple of days ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right, DJ, continue.
I don't know if I want to continue this podcast after you just stepped on Jason's legacy like that.
You mean honored it?
That's true. Rest in peace, Jason. We miss you, buddy.
Murder is in the set. Sure, just give us the...
Get it?
Sure. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, if its toughness was less than 1, draw a card.
That's got to be a card that's probably an Infest variant or something.
That's Hepetra Stonks right there.
Yeah.
That's Scorpion God Stonks too.
Yeah.
I like that. These are rules text that are showing up on cards.
Right.
Choose any number of target players. I don't think that one's new. There's been a few cards.
There's
been a couple.
They draw cards or whatever.
Creature cards in your graveyard gain. You may cast this card from your graveyard until end of turn. Underworld Breach. Sure.
A million things.
That's the kind of text that can be scary on a card, and it's probably going to suck because they were really conservative with it.
Yeah, it's either a 0 or a hero.
Right.
Oh my god. You may search your graveyard hand and or library for a card named Magnifying Glass and or a card named Thinking Cap and put them onto the battlefield.
I love that. I wish there was also a card called, like, Corncob Pipe. You got your little pipe, your little magnifying glass, really Sherlock it up.
As long as there are no cards in your library, ...
So hold up. Magnifying glass is already a card, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is neat. They're doing that thing where, I don't remember, one of the core sets, early core sets, like 2011 or something, they had
Empires.
Yeah, they had a set of cards that
Scepters or
referenced
something.
each other. And
There's
you
also
very rarely ever got any of it in limited because one of them was rare. But it was always a fun little dream and a good intro for stuff. So they're taking Magnifying Glass, a card that already existed, and creating a similar thing around that. I think that's neat. Sounds like it'll be fun and limited.
There was also Bog Brew Witch and, like, the Toad and the other thing that goes with her. That was cool, too.
Whoa. Listen to this one. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, target opponent gets 2 poison counters.
Yeah. That's, a really scary line of text. It's not sacrifice the clue to its own activated ability.
Yeah,
that's
Quark Clan Ironberg stuff. That's...
So poison is in the Karlov Manor set?
There's probably, like, one, like, an assassin who, like, poisons detectives or something, and every time they get closer...
They did this with Call Time.
You're right.
There is one card in Call Time that is poison counters.
So, if this card costs, like, less than 4 mana, it's incredibly scary and standard to me. Like, honestly, because we have a free sack outlet for artifacts, and
there are...
It's just scary in Commander in general if it costs...
Sure.
If it's flexible enough to be slotted into decks.
Yeah, my XL deck, let's go.
I don't think this card goes in a poison deck. I think this card goes in an artifact generation deck so that you kill people.
It could go infinite. It could go infinite for sure. It's also, I mean, there is a toxic deck in standard, or at least one. It could work its way into something like that.
Target opponent gains control of any number of target permanents you control. So
that's a bribe.
Yeah, it's a bribe, but it's also like Zedru and or what's the devil red-black one? Comedic Genius or something?
Blip?
There's like a red-black version of Zedru.
Blip?
Jason is mad at
Blip
me that I'm
Comedic
not
Genius.
good. Yeah.
Whenever I see this kind of card show up, like, the card that interests me isn't the payoff in Zedru, it's like Bazaar Trader or Donate.
Yes.
If I'm looking for, like, a spec on that, like, I love Bazaar Trader. That card sucks, but I love it.
So, Cass, you were saying that Streets of New Capenna had the very on-brand names with witness protection and all those. We've got a few just straight-up confirmed ones. Deadly Cover-Up, Eliminate the Impossible, Homicide Investigator, Innocent Bystander. Some of these are really good for Twitter JPEG replies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna have Innocent Bystander saved my phone, just like I have generic counter trap from Yu-Gi-Oh, just to reply to people with. It doesn't add up. Yeah, that's a good one. Scene of the crime, also great for quote tweeting somebody. Like, these are really good for usage on Twitter so far.
Yeah, some of the others, Private Eye, Person of Interest, Caught Red-Handed. I actually thought the Deadly Cover-Up was telling us a reprint, because I was thinking of the card...
Devious Cover-Up.
Devious Cover-Up, correct. Is it much more...
Responsible for one of my favorite limited archetypes, which is 2 Devious Cover-Ups, no win conditions.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely loved that.
Change your homework, just don't make it look obvious. Deadly Cover-Up, Devious Cover-Up.
Yeah, well, there was an archetype in... was Deadly Cover-Up originally in one of those Ravnica sets before?
It was RNA, I think.
Yeah. And then again in Midnight Hunt.
And then, the Midnight Hunt was the second one. Yeah, it was in Guilds of Ravnica originally. I love that set. That was one of the first sets they had on Arena to draft. And it makes me so sad that Arena doesn't do more. They almost never do flashback drafts like that. They just brought back Kaladesh. But that's like, that's like a Kaladesh premiere set. Like, give me some of these 5-year-old flashback drafts once a month for a week on Arena. Something. Give me something. Because I got all those old sets. They were so much fun.
Back when Moto used to do throwback drafts more often, whenever Rise of the Eldrazi would come on, that would just be what I did for a week.
Yeah.
I love that format. It's so good.
Was very...
So one of the things that comes with the Mark Rosewater preview thing is creature types. interesting creature type lines. And I previously mentioned artifact creature Cluefish, but legendary creature Mole God. I believe the only gods on Ravnica are the Gruul old gods, right? That's what Ilharg was. Ilharg was the raised boar.
Yes.
I could be wrong about that lore-wise, and I'm sure some Vorthos is like already typing on their keyboard, and honestly, good for them. Like, I deserve to be corrected on it. Because I'm curious about this. I love moles. They're just such little guys. I assume this is going to be a big guy, though.
God. I didn't know. I always support new god designs in Magic. I think that they generally turn out. The whole, like, sub-archetype of cards that has persisted now across years, when it was originally just a cycle back in Born of the Gods or whatever, Theros, yeah.
There's also been a bunch of fun interpretations of them, like the Theros ones are only creatures when you believe in them enough, have enough devotion. The Amonkhet ones like live among the people, but only would act for you when you met certain conditions.
Yeah, and the LCI ones doing the land thing is a fun design for them with their own conditions.
The Hour Devastation ones are just immortal, but like they're slow.
Right. Well, they're also they're the gods that they had to kill because they turned evil.
Yeah.
Or they had to, like, entomb.
Sure. Yeah.
Sweet.
All right. Well, I think that does it. Look, if you don't like the standard talk, tough, because it's fun for us for standard to be relevant, and it's good for you as someone who, at least maybe had his dreams of getting some value.
That in itself is worth talking about, even if you don't play standard. I don't play standard, but the fact that I sold a Jetmir's Garter for $22 means nature is healing, and not intended pun because I just said Jetmir's Garden and nature is healing, but still, like that is very, very good for the health of the game overall. And it's a good sign that the fact that when the new year turned over, just standard cards started selling out because of a season, because of a thing that is over the course of next few months. It is just, this is when you're supposed to play standard. Go get them.
Yeah. So over the next few months, it's currently standard RCQ season, so the players trying to qualify for regional championships are playing standard. The actual regional championships coming up over the next couple months are modern, so we may see more modern movement.
Which is also good. Just making it multiple formats is just very good for the ecosystem.
Well, they're two different things. Yeah. So you've got one class of people, or a lot of the people who maybe even qualify for the regional championships are playing modern, but the sort of the grassroots level right now is standard. Before, it was Pioneer. In a few months, it would be Modern or whatever. Right? That's because we have actual sort of seasons again with Magic. Like DJ put it, it is sort of a nature is healing type situation.
I think one of the structural problems with Modern, too, in terms of like keeping play fresh, is I've played Modern for, how long has it been around? 13 years or something? 12, 13 years. And obviously the format's changed a lot since then, but like, there's still a bunch of interactions that I have that are just like fresh. Like all my heuristics still exist. It's one of the reasons why it's so hard to get good at Legacy unless you're like already a great Magic player, is because there's just a bunch of heuristics to learn. Standard has that still, where like great Magic players generally rise to the top.
What are some examples of this in like Legacy or Modern?
In Legacy, things like knowing when to fetch basics to play around Wasteland, knowing when to play around Days, understanding that like against lands decks you need to like be able to beat a 20/20 at instant speed. Just like understanding the format, understanding the points that matter, the pressure points that matter in gameplay decisions. And in Modern, you have those two where like if you're playing Amulet, you have to play around Force of Vigor. If you're like a mid-range player, you have to figure out how to beat certain types of combo decks. In Standard, format's brand new, and it changes so much so quickly that like I had the realization that one mana removal was particularly important for mid-range decks, but way less important for control decks. And like, that obviously makes some amount of sense, like in a baseline, but understanding the emphasis of that is important. Understanding that like the domain decks need to have more plays in the middle turns, because playing the biggest things would lose to both the aggro decks and the mid-range decks. There's a lot more evolution and change in Standard, which makes sense because the card pool is smaller and the card pool is constantly changing. And I think that's good for the game because, one, keeps things fresh for players. It's really hard to complain about a stale Standard if it rotates, unless there's like a really dominant oppressive card printed. It's good for stores because they get to sell more singles because decks are constantly changing. Always been one of the big draws of Standard. And it also means that cards that stores can buy from their distributors are worth something.
Yes, that is a very, very big one. Is the store, like, I mean, we had Brian Bouchard on last week, and he doesn't do Standard. But if you wanted to get into Standard, the baby steps to that are, hey, I need to be able to get a bunch of cards from my distributor, open them up, realistically sort them in a way that makes sense, and then have them on display for players to be able to sell for a slight profit.
Right. There are a couple of sets in Standard that are almost profitable to open. Like, that's a wild improvement over previously where nothing was worth opening ever.
Yeah. Another point about Standard that I think is it's maybe lost, especially since we moved away from the block structure, is that one of the appeals of Standard is when you ask people about their favorite Standard, they almost never name a set. They name a deck.
Yeah. And
when those decks are Naya Blitz, Boros Heroic, Bant Toxic, any of a billion other things we can name, right? Vampires over there. And that thing was a real unique. Nowadays, you end up with a lot of Esper midrange versus red-black midrange. Oh, but this red-black is slightly more aggro than that other red-black. And this one, this is our black-green midrange deck.
Focus
here's someone playing
mechanics.
Control.
The focus on named mechanics has been lost as you don't dedicate multiple sets.
That's part of it. That's part of it, but at a sort of a level, it's also the decks are more a mess of powerful cards than they are synergistic cards.
That's what I mean by named
mechanics.
Is like you don't get to staple a bunch of mechanics to your deck identity anymore. It's like, Boros Landfall was a thing because you just put an Adventurer's Gear on a Step Links and then cracked somebody's skull open. Like, that was
and I don't, like I said, I don't know if it's important that the mechanic is the thing, but
it's important for building newer players. Like, if the newer player, like Mark Rosewater talks about all the time, like, opens up a pack, spreads the cards out, like, I see 3 cards with domain.
Of course.
Let's go.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is just, like, whether it's, like Naya Blitz, it's not like, the cards didn't have Blitz, right? But it's still, it tells you what it was, right?
I think,
go ahead.
I think the other thing is that Standard just tends to be more open because of that. Like, new ideas can come forward because it's less explored.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of players have poured over Modern hundreds of times trying to find new things. And, it's really rare that a new archetype pops up. My store, over the weekend, we hosted a 78-player Standard RCQ. 78! For Standard.
Love that.
The guy who won it, when I talked to him, he said, yeah, I just picked a deck that was about $50 and played all the cards I liked, and he was playing red-green with 4 giant growth. God's green giant growth. He was playing it on
good when giant growth was good.
He was playing it on Picnic Ruiner. His green cards were Tyvar's Stand and Royal Treatment, things that give your creatures hexproof. It was a Monastery Swiftspear, put rolls on it deck. It was so cool. He just crushed everybody in the room because he was like, well, the format's kind of mid-rangey and big, and if you just go underneath that, you win. He made a good meta call. He played a deck that cost $50. He won, I think first place was $500 or $600 for a tournament. We did a 1.5K.
Yeah, that's great.
With his Standard deck, he qualified for the RC, and that is the on-ramp to competitive Magic. That is how you make people care about tournaments. That's how you make people care about being willing to pay for their cards. Tournaments are the gold standard backing for money.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
Magic cards are worth nothing if there's no tournaments because they can just...
They're right.
The products people are right. You can just print off a Mana Crypt and no one's going to stop you at your commander table.
Yep.
But that's not going to keep your LGS in business. You know what's going to keep your LGS in business? Standard RCQs. Give players a reason to care. It's not about the money. It's about giving the players a reason to care. Quote Cedric Phillips, Twitter.
Yeah, I was going to say queue up Cedric's thread from the other day.
1624. Yeah.
Which is, it's interesting. That's something that Wizards knows about, right? And a lot of the marketing the content side of people that we actually do around the Pro Tour, the stuff we do focuses on that sort of thing as much as possible. But it also requires an investment to be year round or to be regular. And I think that Cedric's thread, that was one of the points that they slammed you over the head with their opens when they were coming and when they were. It was in every single article title. And you know what? The opens were almost every week. And it just all feeds into it in a way that you just can't quantify with pure ROI on clicks. And it's just it's just rough. It's sort of the base struggle that public relations sort of as an industry has always faced.
I can't remember if this is a Cedric quote or a Patrick quote, but I know it's one of them. I believe it's Cedric. Because it's a marketing thing, so it's probably something he would say. But he said it on coverage a long time ago. Maybe it was on his stream where he said, you don't sell people Nikes. You sell them the idea of Michael Jordan wearing Nikes. And he sells you the Nikes. And the SCG Players Tour, what it used to be, was like, Cedric said it himself, he made people give a shit about Kevin Jones. Do you know how hard that is? Like, they built stars. They built stars on the SCG Tour. They took nerdy gamers who were really good at their game, who cared a lot, and they built stars out of them, and they sold a dream. They didn't sell Magic cards. They sold a dream, and the dream sold the Magic cards.
Jerry Thompson and Brad Nelson would, I think, be the names that everybody knows.
Right.
Maybe everybody knows Kevin Jones, and I don't, but...
That's the whole point.
The perfect example is, in my opinion, Brian Bronduin.
BBD became a household name overnight because they made him one.
BBD just put in the work because there was a tournament series. He grinded the content level up. He grinded it every step of the way until he...
And SCG backed him the whole way.
He talks about football. Yeah, but it was only... him winning the World Championship was only possible because of the infrastructure that exists. Which sadly brings us back around to all the Magic infrastructure that we've built a lot of things on is crumbling, and you see a lot of the places where it's breaking, and you get I don't want to single anything out, but you get tournament organizer drama, which is something you would never even consider 10 years ago being a thing at the petty Twitter drama level. Like, it's the infrastructure that underpinned a lot of Magic has really fallen out. Whatever you want to blame for that, and it just kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But that's not to be all negative, because we don't want to be negative. There's an SCG con. There are a lot of people there. That blah blah blah.
Standards back.
There were not a lot of people there, Corbin.
All right, DJ. I was trying to just say
all the players were actually up at the RCQ. That was actually where they all went.
It was a tough. It's
78 for a local.
That is a third of the people that were in the SCG Open.
Oh,
right.
No.
The modern 20K.
Standard is back.
The Flesh and Blood event at the SCG Con had more than half of the modern 20K.
Yeah. DJ called Flesh and Blood a dead game.
I mean, the bar's pretty low relative to where Magic is.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on here. I know we're running up on time. We want to give a shout out to another one of our sponsors, Coalesce Apparel and Design. We talked about Cedric. You should check out Cedric's company, Coalesce Apparel and Design. Use the gift code Brainstorm Brewery. Get 10% off any apparel merch that you want from any of your favorite content creators, not just us. So definitely go check that out at Coalesce Apparel and Design. Use that gift code Brainstorm Brewery. And we want to leave you here with our final segment, where we talk perhaps about Standard, perhaps about Modern, perhaps about anything else. It's time for Pick of the Week.
Pick of the week, pick of the week, pick of the week. Time for the pick of the week.
I am going to jump in first because I've got a standard pick here. The Cruelty of Gix.
Is this the saga, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I was worried about Cass doubling up on it.
This card rips.
Unfortunately. Yeah, this card is lit. It's Dominaria United was kind of old. It was like a year and a half ago, y'all, but it's still in Standard, and it's still going to be in Standard. And the Cruelty of Gix is a really powerful saga that a lot of times you can just read ahead and use it to reanimate something, like, say, a Traxa or whatever. But it also has other modes where you can make people mess. You can mess with people's hands. And it's an expensive card at $3 compared to where it was at $2, but I think it's heading probably to the $5 to $10 range. Cruelty of Gix, Dominaria United.
Yeah, I think that card's good. I think it's underplayed. It's a specific kind of deck, but that kind of deck exists, right? We've seen the red-black reanimator decks.
Yeah. It's just got to come back around, you know.
I have an enchantment also. Mine is Takasha's Welcome, Brothers War Rare. Somebody won, I think they won the Standard Challenge with Mono White Toxic playing 4 Srelv's Hive and 4 Takasha's Welcome, which says whenever a creature with mana value 3 or less enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card, trigger only once per turn. You play Bitter Blossom, you play this, you draw an extra card every turn, you make an extra guy. You can make creatures at instant speed with a lot of things in that deck, like Mirex, then becomes a card draw spell on your opponent's turn. Make a Might on their turn, and eventually you just kill them with a bunch of Mites. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
And Tocasia's Welcome is just starting to creep up in price too.
Am I
It's
the
like
weird one
great.
who pronounces it Tocasia?
Pronounce it however you like, buddy. Takasha, Takasia.
I'm even on like Tocasia because there's an I in there, but I think it ultimately just doesn't matter at all. It's a good pick though. I like where this.
You said the card name, and I had no idea what you were talking about until you said mono white.
That's fine. That's fine. Live your life.
It's a good looking chart, and especially like we're talking about standard. This is a in print standard rare. Climbing past that 4 to maybe 5. This is good. These are good things to have exist. Yep. They're $5 standard rares. Opening a pack, getting a normal rare, not having to high roll on a mythic or a crazy list card or whatever. Just getting a basic standard rare that pays for your pack, amazing. Mirex being $10, amazing.
Great.
My pick is neither of those. It is not a standard card, but it is one everybody wants. Much like how Gollum chased all those halflings across the world. Trying to tilt Corbin.
Just the one, but go on.
Tell me more about this.
I'm just trying to tilt Corbin. I know you're a super fan too, but I just want to tilt Corbin. The One Ring is as cheap as it's going to get, I think.
Yeah.
This card was in a lot of bundles over the holiday season. They have pretty much all been cracked. I think that tanked the supply, or it increased the supply quite a lot. The card consistently exports to Japan as well. It's something I was thinking about over this past weekend. We had a player.
Is it also a Europe card?
Probably.
Okay.
I haven't done a ton of arbitrage in the past year or so, but like,
sure.
We had a player come up to us and say, "Hey, do you have any Japanese copies of the One Ring?" We said no, but then they said, "Oh, I try to buy them from Japan. I make all my decks Japanese." And the card's like $100 overseas for Japanese copies. And that is a product of, number one, the fact that Lord of the Rings has no cultural resonance in Japan. Like we talked about with the Adventures of the Forgotten Realm set, those players don't have this 30-year history of what this product means outside of Magic to attach themselves to and just bury themselves in booster pack wrappers. But like, so that card just gets cracked over there, added to the deck, that's it. There's no collectability, or there's none of that. So the supply here is just going to continue to get soaked up, and as long as the card continues to avoid bans, which I know there was talk about it getting banned instead of Fury or instead of Grief or in addition to Fury or Grief or after it won or did well at the Pro Tour or whatever, but like it didn't. It's here. It is here to stay. It is the linchpin of Tron now. You don't go 1-2-7. You go 1-2-4. Play my 4-drop and my other 3-drop thing that's unbeatable, and then your opponent gets real sad. The One Ring is probably going to hit $80 or $90 in the next year or so, and I will continue to pay very close to retail on it in order to continue selling them at that.
Right.
Makes sense.
Stand by it.
Corbin's sideways now. That means the podcast is over.
Oh, no. Sorry. You tilted me. Sorry.
Oh, go
God.
yourself.
Sure. You explained the joke. It was great.
Thank you.
With that, I want to thank you, the listener, for joining us on this adventure of Magic Finance and Magic Drama and Magic Triumph. And honestly, I believe that you can be the best Pokemon trainer that you can be. You go out there and try your best and have no regrets. Thanks for joining us. This has been Brainstorm Brewery, and I'm your host, Cass Lynn, signing off.
Hi, everyone.
End there on that very professional note, I guess.
I loved it. That was perfect.